Okay, so welcome to the Very Fitness Podcast. This is episode 5. We've got Paul Lyngso here. He's a trainer in the States. What part of States are you from, Paul?
I'm in Texas now. Originally
Texas.
Chicago,
Oh,
pandemic, moved around to Texas.
all right. You Chicago Bulls fan?
Yeah, I certainly was when I was a kid, man.
Yeah, I'm a massive Chicago Bulls fan as well. So
Yeah.
brilliant. So basically, what we're going to talk about with Paul today, he's just going to give us a little bit of a background on himself, what got him into the career that he's in, and we're going to talk a little bit more about nutrition once he's talked about himself and express what got him into this industry. So, Paul, I'm going to leave it to you. Tell us what you do
Yeah.
and how you got into it.
Yeah, man. I mean, if we go back to the beginning, I would say it's, a classic case of a skinny guy wanting to get huge, and that's really where I started back in 2002. I was 19 years old, I think, and I bought a book called Gaining Mass by Anthony Ellis. So I don't even know if he's still around. If he is around, I'd love to give him a hug because he changed my life. But that was I didn't play sports or anything like that in high school, so I was not that was my real introduction to formal training, and it was a great introduction because it was very like he had a training journal mapped out for you, he had the nutrition mapped out for you, and so I learned a lot that way, and that got me sort of going on the path. And over time, if you go real hard on that sort of bodybuilding style training, which I did for like, 5, 6, 7 years after that, it'll break you down a little bit, which it did. I had the sore shoulders from benching too much and the bad back and all that stuff. Then I got into kettlebell training. And so at this time, I'm not a fitness professional at all, but I discovered kettlebell training. I'd always wanted to be a fitness professional. And ultimately, I went on and I took um, the RKC certification with Pavel Satsulin, if you know who that is. And that was he's the guy behind RKC and Strong First and so forth. It's like a 3-day certification,
Okay.
and that kind of gave me the confidence to where I had taken some personal training certifications before, but I still didn't really I knew how to train somebody. But that gave me the confidence to say like, hey, this is how you do it. Like this is a system sort of like that you can bring people through. And so I started training people in their homes. In 2010, I got my first lease, which was a sublease. I rented a corner of a gym, taught people kettlebell training, built that up for 3 years. Got my first brick and mortar studio in 2013 and ran that. We moved again into a bigger space in 2016, but ran that all the way through until 2020, which, the pandemic, basically had that gym go to shit, for lack of a better term. And the biggest thing is like, man, we could have rode the waves. I mean, sounds similar to how you're doing, where it's
Yeah.
like you came out the backside and it's maybe looks a lot different than you ever imagined. But for where we were specifically at that time, which was Chicago, it's like, I don't even know what game I'm playing. The laws were so strict or all over the place, inconsistent, and we just couldn't see, we just didn't want to do it anymore. We didn't, that was too much to deal with. And so that's when we went online. And ultimately just wanted a change of environment. So we moved down to Texas as well at that point, and we've been running our online business since, man. And we started, you know, uh, parted ways with our gym team when the gym closed. Started out just my wife and I in our nutrition business, and now we just had our team meeting here in Texas. We had 12 people with us, which was amazing.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you work mostly with clients on the nutritional side, or do you do the physical side as well?
Yeah, I mean, we do both. Yeah, we do both. Our program entails both workouts and the fitness component, and really the overarching thing is the lifestyle. So it depends on the person. For some people, so I'm we talked about this a little bit offline. Like I'm 39. Most of our clients are roughly our age. They have a lot going on with kids and career. So we're not gonna like hammer the workouts in if it's gonna be too much, if it's gonna be too overwhelming in terms of time or just even energy,
Yeah.
you know. So it's like, dude, some people it's just like, hey, let's work on these nutrition habits, let's get some steps in, let's go for a couple of walks a day and like things like that. But yeah, we do have a complete fitness program that we built out online as well in an app.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're dealing with, like I say, a client, say my age at 41, What kind of splits would you give that type of client, training wise?
I'm a big fan of, we do 3 day, if we're gonna do strength training, it'd be like 3 day strength training, and then we'll throw in what's called a bonus day, so that way it doesn't put that stress on you to hit it. Like, that the first three are your priority. They're going to be, 45 to 60 minutes. And then if you're like, over time, you catch momentum, and you like working out. And then you're like, hey, I want to hit this fourth workout over the weekend. And so that's mostly how we do it. Of course, it varies by the individual.
Okay. What kind of split would you do? Do you do like a push pull? Do you do a full body workout? How would you?
Yeah. Good question, man. I'm a big fan of full body.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing 3 days a week. Some advanced clients might do it differently. Um, Also, another thing I like to do is the first two sessions in the week, I'll do something like the first day is a squat and an upper body pulling emphasis, and the next day is like a deadlift or a hinge and upper body pushing emphasis. And so that way, if you do it Monday and Wednesday, great. Or if your schedule is crazy and you got to do a Monday, Tuesday, you can do it without too much interference.
Yeah.
And then the third one will be Thursday or Friday, and that'll be a total body.
Good, good. Do you focus more on like actual building strength, or do you go for more hypertrophy training type of thing, building the muscle, or both?
Yeah, I mean both. I mean, certainly not strength from a powerlifting perspective, certainly not that way. The muscle building will generate a decent amount of strength anyway, right? But I would say the strength training we do is largely based in like skills. So if you can't do a push-up, for example, like we're going to have you do a push-up, that's strength training technically. But the way that you do it, you're really practicing it like a skill, and it's also going to build some muscle while you do it. But I wouldn't really do a whole ton of like muscle building, bodybuilding split if you can't do a proper push-up yet, or a squat or whatever. So it's like skill, strength, and then muscle building is really the way I look at it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's quite good. I mean, I always approach to try and do them type of movements, like proper strength movements, and just
Mm-hmm.
building them up from that. Obviously, if you can, you'll try and get people to be able to do, certain clients to do push-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, sometimes certain people can't even do a push up. So, would you start like doing a bench press or dumbbell bench press, or maybe a machine, or what variation would
Yeah,
you do?
yeah, I'm open to any of that sort of stuff, right? And so if you can't, like, it's a great example. It's like, let's just say you can't do a push-up. Does that mean you can't do anything until you do it? No, of course not, man. So use a machine if you go to a gym, dumbbell bench press, great way to do it. But then in the meantime, this is one thing that to me was just the way I was taught, but apparently it's mind blowing to a lot of people, is I don't do push-ups on the knees.
Yeah,
Okay, so think about a female clientele, they've done push-ups on their knees for a long time. If they can't do a full push-up, I would rather elevate your hands. And so you would, do a push-up here on the desk, right? Which might
yeah,
be about your waist height. And you build that up until you can hold the proper alignment and do, a couple sets of 20 or something like this. And then you would find something, maybe the chair that's something in the height of your knee or your mid thigh, and you work your way towards the ground. So that's the way I would scale that. And what's cool is that over time, people are able to accomplish a push up on the ground without their knees. You know what I mean? And it's
no,
super empowering.
no, definitely, yeah, definitely a better variation doing it sometimes in your knees and that, because you're taking away the emphasis of the core strength that you're actually doing through that
Yes.
exercise.
Exactly. And
No,
it's too big of a jump in core strength. Like there's
yeah,
like to go from knees to feet, that's a big change in levers. And there's really no way to close that gap. But if you're focusing on just the elevation of your hands, like you could do that very gradually, which is makes it doable.
excellent. So, from a cardiovascular point of view, to do anything with your clients on that aspect? How do you approach that?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, for the everyday person, I'm just a big fan of just base training or zone two or the maffetone number or whatever you want to call it. Low intensity aerobic work. So just building that aerobic base as much as possible. Um, so it would be, if somebody's advanced, I might do some very, very high intensity,
Yeah,
but even so, the majority of their stuff is going to be like zone two base cardio, or if they're advanced and they can handle it, threshold work. Right. But I think too many of our clients, if when they're not under proper guidance, they do too much in the middle, and it feels kind of hard. but it's, it feels kind of hard and they get a sweat, but it's too hard to build their aerobic system because their heart rate's too high, but it's not hard enough to actually increase their VO2 max. So they get stuck in this land of like putting in a bunch of effort, taxing themselves recovery wise, but never seen any progress from it. Whereas with the base training, it's like, well, that's what actually gets your heart rate more efficient. It's what, you know what I mean? Your heart is pumping more blood per stroke. Your heart rate's lower. You're building more capillaries, and it actually facilitates recovery in between your strength training workouts. Whereas if you do a HIIT workout, you do something in zone 3-4, I mean, that's going to hamper your strength training. It's going to require additional recovery.
So when you're doing the strength training side on the program,
Mm-hmm.
how many exercises would you do in a particular session?
Yeah. So we'll start, like, if you look at the things that we're trying to touch in a workout, it's going to be movement, strength, and then usually in the focus work is usually muscle building. Most people want to look better, right? And so the movement portion might be 3 or 4 exercises where it's core strength, it's mobility, it's just general athleticism, and that works really nicely as a warm up. And then we'll do anyway, 2 to 4 main lifts, compounds,
Yeah.
and then 2 to 3 accessory lifts, depending on the day, depending on the person, all that stuff. So
yeah. Like we were saying off camera, we're very similar how you program. Yeah, exactly how I would program it, definitely. So going on to the nutritional side. So obviously, I know you've listened to your podcast before, listened to your nutritional side. How do you approach how people should eat, how they should follow the nutritional side with your clients? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I'll start here by saying that, it's definitely lifestyle, right? It's definitely lifestyle. So there's no good or bad foods. There's no on the diet, off the diet. There's nothing like that. What we want to do is, one, give you structure. So, because the more structure you have, the easier it is to ingrain the habits, the easier it is to sustain it. Your brain craves structure. It doesn't crave chaos. Chaos creates anxiety. So it's like, that's a big part of it. But then also giving you the tools and the skills to deviate from the structure so that you can live your life, enjoy the food you want, enjoy the food and drink and experiences you want without feeling like a failure or without feeling like it's going to take you off plan. And so the way that I do it is, I would say that we do start with, I don't want to call it restriction, but we take away as many moving parts as possible. We start by making it crazy simple, and what that allows you to do is find the foods that you like, in how to eat them in the amounts that make sense for you, how to plan for those things, how to shop for them, how to get them. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I kind of like these foods, but it's like, well, how much do I eat for my goal? And there's a big difference between saying I like that thing and how do I get it to my plate at the time that I need to eat it in the amounts that I said, right?
Yeah.
And so by making it simple and removing as many moving parts as possible, you allow people to create a structure for themselves that's easy to follow. And that also then they can extrapolate those lessons out, and over time they can expand on that structure, right? So I'm a big fan of paring it down first, create the structure, make it simple, then add in some flexibility as they learn the skills, and ultimately that bridges the gap to real true freedom, which is, not only can I have whatever food I want, but also I'm free in that I'm never worried about, setting my progress back, because I understand that this is the outcome I want, and this is what I got to put in to get that outcome. And I know that sometimes that outcome changes. If I'm dialing it in for a beach vacation, that requires a different input, that requires a different level of diligence than when I just want to maintain, right? And so, hey, if I could start with that and I have the skills to match that, dude, it's so easy and it's so freeing, because you never feel like, oh, I'm a failure. You're just working on what you want to work on,
Yeah, no, definitely. So you're not you don't put anyone like on a kind of a keto type of diet or anything like that. You try and basically work it out what will work for that particular client.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we're always going to start. I mean, we're always going to start with staple foods, which to us, a staple food is something that, you know you can enjoy regularly. So like you're not going to get sick of it. And it's easy and convenient, you know? So for me, it's like, dude, Greek yogurt, you know, it's high in protein, you know, is lower in calories, which is important because if I can have a high protein, low calorie breakfast, that creates more flexibility for more calories to enjoy later in the day.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and it's convenient. I just take it out of my fridge, put it in a bowl, easy peasy. Right. So we start with these staple foods that are different for everybody. And then what we can do is we can look at, oh, you tend to enjoy this. You tend to go this way. So let's lean into what you like. And then let's make small tweaks to maybe make it more beneficial for you. Like, hey, I know you love that food, but we really do want to get enough protein in to make sure you hang on to muscle, right? So here's a couple of ways we can add some protein into that staple meal. Start with what they're doing and then make the most, you know, effective tweaks from there.
So would you sit down with your client and basically work out how many calories they should have, what the micro split should be? Do you do anything like that, or?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, we're always going to start with observation,
Yeah.
you know. So like, hey, just we say don't stuff, don't starve. You know, the best calculator on the internet is almost always wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and so we're looking for, if you're a weight loss client, generally speaking, you want to lose about a pound a week, 1 to 2 pounds maybe. You could lose more if you did keto, for example,
Yeah.
right? Because you lose all that water weight at first from not eating carbohydrates, but it sucks and your life is miserable.
Yeah.
So, and you'll probably be very low on energy. So it's like we tend to find that if you lose a pound or two a week, you can still eat a decent amount of food to where you're not starving, but you also have decent amount of energy and it's sustainable for the long haul. So, so yeah, anyway, so we say don't stuff, don't starve. We get a feel for how much food you're eating, and then we make recommendations based on that in real time, right? And then as far as the full macro split, some clients we do because either they have very specific goals and training goals where it's like we need to dial into carbohydrates or whatever, or some people just need more structure. So if we say, hey, this is your macro split, put it into MyFitnessPal and work backwards, they thrive off of that.
Yeah.
But the reality is the most important things are the calories and the protein. Get enough protein, you know what I mean, so that you hang on to your muscle, keep your calories in balance if you want to maintain weight, or a little bit lower if you want to lose weight, and you know life will be good. Those are really the main metrics.
No, 100%. That's why I always say to my clients, I say we need to kind of work out what the calories are, especially if the goal is weight loss or fat loss. But the main two things I look at out of everything is your calories and your protein. I always probably put protein sometimes a bit higher because for me it's all about building lean muscle tissue and get as much muscle tissue as we can, especially as we age. We tend to naturally
Yep.
decrease because testosterone comes down, and making sure we stay within the calories of kind of what we want to be aiming for. And the carbs and fat can take care of itself, like you say, depending on what that person. Say, if I had a client and they wanted to go on holiday and they want to look a little bit leaner, then obviously we would just reduce the calories. Like you say, to get any water retention out of the body. 9 out of 10 time they get on holiday and they're enjoying themselves the 2-3 days, they probably swell up.
Yeah.
But
Goes right back. Yeah.
but ideally, you can look at it from that point. If that happens, if they're maintaining a good muscle mass, it will go to the muscles. And from a bloke's point of view, you'll look a bit. You look
Yeah.
well. You look a bit swelled.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So when you're working with your clients, where do you find they struggle the most when it comes to the nutritional side or the training side, or?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of everything. I mean, honestly, it's in their head is where they struggle the most. It's false beliefs about how hard they need to work in the gym, which leads to ineffective training, right? I mean, if you do a normal strength training workout, it's not going to feel like if you do an effective strength training workout, it's not going to feel the same as if you did a boot camp class, right? The boot camp class will have you feeling like you worked harder, but over time, it's not going to produce the result that just kind of resting 2 minutes between sets and doing another good set that's hard and with good form will, like that's what will actually produce the result. So there's a lot of false beliefs about that in the training world. There's a lot of false beliefs about good and bad food in the diet world. And so a lot of times it is about belief breaking. There's false beliefs about what you should or shouldn't put into your body in terms of like the effort and the time you should put into your own body as a parent or as an employee. Like, I don't have time for that. I should be pouring into my kids, or I should be doing whatever. And so we really want to start with a mental reframe, which is like, why are you doing this? Why is it important for you to show up as the highest level version of you as possible? Like, your kids don't want you beat down and tired. A lot of people hide behind that. You're a parent. We talked about it. A lot of people hide behind like, oh, I should just pour into my kids. I can't do anything for myself. Like, look, dude, your parents or your kids don't want parents who are tired, who are stressed out, who are resentful, who are envious of all the other parents who look good and dress well and that sort of thing, right? They want parents who are showing up with an energy that's confident and powerful. And you have to take care of yourself first. That's the number one thing you can do for your kids. And it's the same with that work, dude. Like, you know, I get if you have a job that only values you if you're ground down to a nub, well, guess what? When you're all ground down, when you're all worn out and used up, then you're not going to be valuable to them anymore. But at the same time, if you can find a way to recharge yourself, show up super powerfully, you're only increasing your value,
Yeah.
your own value in that workplace, but also the value that you provide to your team and your clients or whoever your work structure works. So it's like, man, let's get there first. Let's talk about why you need to do this. Okay. And once we know that, once you're bought in on that, then we can go with the actual education of this is why we would train this way. This is why, you know what I mean? This is why we would focus on nutrition this way. And then then it's all just X's and O's from there. That's easy.
Oh, no, 100% agree. I mean, I say this to my clients all the time that you've got to think about yourself because sometimes I've had that in the past with clients, with kids. And I'm proving it myself now, how I look at it. I'll always make sure that I'll always find 3 hours a week to do some resistance training. And then obviously I have my sport, basketball, that I do on a Friday, a couple of hours aside of that. And it's important for me for my mental well-being. And it's good for them because, like you say, if I'm doing it and I'm fitter, I'm stronger, and I'm happier in my head, I'm a better person. And I can give all the time when I'm not doing them things on either, most importantly, my family and work. But you've got to find that time within yourself to commit to keeping yourself fit. It doesn't always have to be down to how good you look and all that. But obviously, one of my mottos I used to have is look good, feel good. So if you do look good, you do feel good, definitely 100%. But just because you just feel stronger and you feel fitter, and when you run up the stairs or doing anything, you're not getting out of breath, and you feel so much better. It's like sometimes I think people don't understand what it's like to be fit and strong. Some people can get in a state where they're not exercising, or say they have been exercising. Say obviously with lockdown, you've got out of the habit. When they get back into it, they forget how great they feel when they've got that fitness back and they've got that strength back.
Yeah. It's a feeling for sure, and then that feeling resonates, or not even resonates, but is amplified externally. So it's like, I want to bring it back to what you said. It's not always about how you look. One thing that we talk about with our clients is it's about being attractive, and how you look is a part of being attractive. But what really attracts people to you is your energy and your confidence. You know what I mean? Like it's all like, look, man, like I'm no Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? I never will be, but I can carry myself in a certain way that you just can't fake when you are fit. Like when you feel good and you feel strong, you exude a certain energy that you just can't pretend. You know what I mean? It's only available to people who do the work on themselves. And I think that's a really powerful concept to understand.
Oh, 100%. I had a client on Friday, and we're doing might have been just doing the lat pull down. We're just doing some extra bit of back work, and he said to me, "I love coming to the gym because when I walk out here, I'm upright, I feel confident."
Yeah.
And it does, if you exercise, it helps improve your posture. It opens you up. It makes you feel more confident. You're walking straighter rather than being like hunched, and especially these days because a lot of people do work on sat down on computers and stuff. You can get like that, and because you sat down, you're not moving. When you open up right and you exercise and you've got that extra bit of energy, you got that little stride in your step from doing that.
Yeah.
So going with the nutritional side, I mean, I think what you just said there is 100%. That's what I pretty much recommend to most of my clients. But unfortunately, in this industry, we do tend to still get people leaning towards like doing the carnivore diet, doing the keto diet, doing all them aspects. And I always say to people, every diet has something good about it. for start off, if you restrict certain foods, you're on a calorie deficit. So if your goal is for weight loss, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the diets tend to aim for high protein anyway, which we discussed before about they're the building blocks to build the muscle. So you need to make sure that you're getting the protein into your diet. So when you're working with clients, do you get asked, should I do this? Should I do that? A
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I would just say like, yeah, I mean, if you enjoy it, if you enjoy it, cool, because now it's sustainable. So if you enjoy it, you can do that, and then let's put it into, you know, let's make sure it's in a framework that works for your weight loss or whatever. So okay, cool. If you love keto, you can do that, right? Let's just make sure you get enough protein, which is a problem with a lot of keto diets. For example, there's really not supposed to be more than like 30% of your diet, or no, I'm sorry, not 30%, 15% of your diet from protein or something like that. I don't know. But either way, the point is, rather than just shoot it down and be like, no, that's stupid. I'm like, yeah. If you enjoy it, like, let's do that. Let's build a framework around that. And then lo and behold, nobody actually enjoys it.
I know, I know.
You know what I mean? And so then what's cool is that they come to that realization on their own.
Yeah,
And when they do want to have whatever it is they want to have, French fries or a glass of wine or whatever it is, um, now they're just like, oh, cool. Like I set keto wasn't the end all be all. And I'm not failing by drinking this glass of wine. And so then they slowly come to a place where like, oh, okay, cool. I don't need keto anymore. But if I just came in like, man, that's so dumb, don't do that, it's too restrictive, you're not going to get the buy-in. But if you're like, hey, let's do it your way, let's make sure you enjoy it, because like enjoyability is the key to sustainability, right? And they're like, of course, everybody gets that. And so cool, and give them permission to change their mind a couple of weeks from now and they say, hey, you know what, I don't actually enjoy that thing.
yeah,
um and that's just kind of how I approach it. I really try not to shoot anything down, because there's always some kind of merit for something, or there's something that attracted that thing to that person in the first place. So it's like, hey, just let it play its course, but let me just do my part to educate,
yeah.
and you'll probably come to your own conclusions.
Okay. So on the flip side, what would you do if you had a client that was vegan or vegetarian?
Yeah, I mean, we have plenty of them. I mean, plenty. Okay, maybe not plenty, but maybe not plenty as a percentage. But yeah, we've worked with some, and are currently working with plenty of them. And you just go, cool. Like, that is going to represent some challenges of getting protein in,
Yeah,
but here's what we recommend to get those challenges in, or to get that protein in, right? And so in the short run, I would definitely just say, hey, if the protein is low and we're meeting calories and you're enjoying yourself and you're learning how to meal prep and you're learning how to be proactive and you're losing weight, great. Because honestly, losing weight is being in a normal or a healthy BMI is really the number one way that you can reduce all these health factors, all these health risks, right? So it's like, hey, dude, you're still moving in the right direction. Ideally, in the long term, I'd like to see you holding on to muscle, because that's going to affect your quality of life down the road. But if in the short term, um, creating the structure and losing weight means that you're a little bit low on protein, all good. Let's work on solving that problem slowly over time. Let's work on the most demanding problem first, which if you're, 30, 40 pounds overweight, that's the problem, the most demanding problem. And then we can work on building the protein up over time, whether it's working in more protein powders or depending on what the person's restrictions are, they can do eggs or egg whites or like whatever. Right. And so it's just customization, man.
yeah,
And like I said, it's a challenge, but if they're a vegan for moral reasons or whatever, like, you're not going to overcome that.
yeah,
If so may as well work with them. And if it's health reasons, I mean, I had one guy, he's like, dude, I'm a vegetarian. I was 30 something years old. I had high cholesterol and I went vegetarian, and 6 months later, my cholesterol was in range, no medication. Okay, well, cool. Just because I've never seen studies on that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a strong anecdote that he's tied to. Like, who am I to tell him what's wrong or what's right or wrong for him when he's done that much work already? So cool, dude. Let's work with it. Let's figure it out.
yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I did some blood work. I'm quite interested in doing blood work to see where my biomarkers was. And yeah, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I'm pretty lean most year
Mm-hmm.
round. I'm pretty, I like to say, even for my age, I'm very fit. And when I did my biomarkers with this company, I got my test back, and believe it or not, my cholesterol was very high,
Mm.
extremely high at the time. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Everything was perfect, but my cholesterol. And believe it or not, a few years ago, I actually did do went vegan for about 6 months and did vegetarian. I was going
Mm.
through a period. My dad was diagnosed with skin cancer, and at the phase 4 stage was quite late. So I
Mm.
was looking at all different things, and vegan was coming through, and there was a lot going towards that,
Mm.
saying how healthy, how it stops like tumor growth. So I kind of went down that path. Anyway, came back off it, got back into eating meat. For me, that's how my body reacts better. I wasn't doing it for ethical reasons. I was just doing it more for health. So
Mm-hmm.
going back to my cholesterol, because of that, I've gone very not so much keto or anything like that, but just very high protein. I don't take in very many carbs. If I do take in carbs, it's more from natural sources like vegetables, fruit, grains, and the odd time pizza and popcorn and some naughty
Mm-hmm.
ones here and there. And then what I found is when I found out my cholesterol was quite high, I kind of thought, right, okay, I probably having a lot of meat, but probably too much fatty meat, too many steaks, too many eggs all the time. I was like my steaks and eggs for lunch all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to cut that out. And believe it or not, I actually did a little. Have you ever heard of Heal, the meal replacement shake? It's
Yeah. Okay.
basically plant based. Because I was
Yeah.
also fasting at the time. I usually fast in the morning, just because going back to having kids, getting up in the morning is always a bit of a struggle trying to get into school and try and make some breakfast. So I thought I'll do fasting. That's quite easy. You can have a big window, not eating. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to start having a Huel. So I got back having to have a breakfast. And I started cutting out too much red meat, trying to get my protein sources, still from red meat, chicken and fish, plenty of fish, getting in some plant-based protein in. And believe it or not, I managed to take, I don't know what your calculations is in the US when it comes to cholesterol, but my cholesterol, total cholesterol was 7.8, which is really high. Like anything above 5.1 is
Mm.
classed as high. And getting back into monitoring like that, I noticed it came down to 5.3. So it was a massive, massive drop. So the reason why I'm going with this story is basically sometimes even like with no protein, having a high protein diet, cutting all the carbs, all the sugar, all the rubbish out, depending on your blood type, can increase your cholesterol. Because what I found out was the reason why my cholesterol was probably high as well is because it's a hereditary thing in our family. My
Mm.
dad's had high cholesterol. For some reason, on my dad's side of the family, we produce a lot more LDL. So obviously, naturally, LDL will go up as your body's natural producer of cholesterol. So yeah, I think it's interesting when you come to diets and that. There's no one, basically what I'm saying, vegan way or keto way. It's just finding that right balance, what works for that individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. It's like, I think one of the things we say is like we're going to teach you principles, but then how you apply the principles is really where the customization comes in.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's just for the wrong population. We were talking a little bit before offline before we started about how like yeah, having gone online is that I'm not geographically restricted, which means I can really talk to a very specific person. They could be anywhere in the states or technically in the world, but I
Yeah.
mean we're mostly in the states right now. Um, and so the people we're dealing with, they're ready for that level of ownership. They're ready to say, hey, like the answers are not black and white. There's a lot of gray,
Yeah.
and I think that's really powerful. And that's there's not every client wants to hear that. Many people, when they have a problem like weight loss or whatever, all they can see is like this gut or that or whatever they see, and it's like I just give me a black and white answer right now,
Mm.
and that's fine. There's solutions out there for that, but it's not going to serve you in the long run, you
Yeah.
know. And so it's like yeah, there's some black and white principle or some time tested principles like calories in, calories out, right?
Yeah.
But the application of that is very gray. It's going to look very different for a lot of people. You know, I joke around a lot and say that, like, man, some days my diets is nothing but steak and my kids fruit snacks. You know what I mean? Like, and I can stay lean and it's fine. I got enough protein, but like those fruit snacks look good. And next thing I know, I'm like, well, I don't really have any calories left for, anything else, right? And it's all well and good. That's obviously not the ideal situation, but it works. It works in that context on those days. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Plenty of days I eat vegetables and salads like an adult.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. All right. Well, Paul, I think what we've been talking about today is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
something I totally agree with. I think your approach that you do for your clients is the correct approach, from the physical training and definitely from the nutritional side. We're really open-minded, trying to work to that individual, what can work, because I think sometimes I find with other trainers that they put too much emphasis on the nutritional side and make it quite complicated for people and make it the goal
Mm-hmm.
of actually trying to achieve it too hard because there's too much
Mm-hmm.
restrictions on it. And I think your open approach of just controlling what you're eating and getting an understanding is definitely the right way to go about it.
Cool, man.
So, Paul, just for the listeners now, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, go to missingpeacepodcast.com. Missingpeacepodcast.com. You can grab my podcast on there on Apple and Spotify. And then I'm redoing the site now, but my social media should be on there as well. So Facebook or Instagram. I mean, that's the best way, man.
Yeah.
I don't, my traditional website is, I barely use it. So social media and podcast is really how I communicate with people now.
Yeah, that's definitely the way of the world now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Brilliant.
So.
Brilliant. Well, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for coming on to my podcast.
Yeah,
And
man.
I feel like my listeners will take a lot of that information that you've given them today and take it on board. And hopefully
Appreciate having me.
they'll get in touch with you as well and
Yeah.
learn a bit more. Okay.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you, Paul.